God of the universe, maker of the stars, who am I that you would know my name?
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life on Purpose. We are so happy that you guys have chosen to tune in and join us for this week's episode. We are on episode number 50, which is unbelievable that we're already here. Feels like we just started this.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something. Hey, I
Crazy.
do need to give it a little bit of an announcement here. I had a good friend of this program, and I think everybody will know. You guys will know him really fast. That sent me just a word of thanks the other day. He has listened to every single program that we've had. Some of them, I think, multiple times. But so in honor of the 50th, he is actually sending a check that will take care of almost the whole year of broadcasting for us. So
Wonderful.
That is
yeah,
awesome.
I know he would not want to me to mention his name, so I won't mention Jared.
Well, hallelujah, and thank you very much.
Yes.
We're humbled, and we're thankful, and we're grateful,
Yes.
and we are confident in where God has placed us in this, and we just love doing it. And so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good
Yes,
time.
thank
So
you.
Ryan, get us started tonight, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So after the past 2 or 3 podcasts, kind of something that came to the mind of, I think, most of us, but Mike kind of brought it up and was like, hey, let's do this. We wanted to talk in these times, in these events that we're seeing unfold on a global scale. And though some of them are far away, and there is somewhat of the anticipation that they may be coming to a theater near you. To put it lightly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we wanted to talk a little bit on the topic of situational awareness and what we can do to better ourselves, better our understanding for both us and for our families to ensure their safety. This is not to spread fear in any means, but this is just to maybe put some tools in the toolbox that you can use during your daily walk and your daily life, and even in your congregations to protect yourself, your family, and those around you that you love and care about. So thoughts on the subject, guys? Who wants to open us up?
Let me just jump in here because I don't have a lot of training. I know that, right, you've gone through a lot, and I've trained with you a lot about stuff, and Mike, you've taught a lot about that stuff, and Daniel, I don't know where you're at with that, but I know that based on my little that I know, when it comes to a topic as broad and as big as this, it does not mean it doesn't necessarily always mean gear. And sometimes the simplest things are the actually the things that matter the most. It's really like it's all up in here in your mind. And that was always something that really blew me away. And you really don't know unless you've actually spent time practicing it when you didn't absolutely need it. And I think that was something that always blew me away when I did get to learn a little bit about this. And I think I would like to talk more as we go along with maybe examples or whatnot. Intent, I think, is my word for that, is intent. What is your intent when this is happening? Are you trying to be inconspicuous? Are you trying to fly under the radar? Whatever your intent is how then your body's going to lead. It's basically where your head is aimed. If you're aiming for that, that means your body will follow in that. So you have to practice that. You have to understand that. But then what's our intent with the words we speak? I mean, we've talked about that. I mean, sorry, we're probably going to keep talking about it because it seems like it never goes away, is what people's intent on social media is not the same thing as what they would do in real life. They get to hide behind a screen and say a bunch of stuff and a lot of nasty, extremely nasty things. They are not going to say that to your face. They probably would never do that. But what's your intent of going in within the social interaction on the internet versus in life when you actually might be faced with a protest before you? I think that there's a lot that could be said about that. But again, it's not about fear, not about fear at all. It's just looking with your eyes.
Daniel?
Yeah, so I am subscribed to the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's group, and there's a lot of great content on there and all sorts of things. And one thing that one person they have a lot of exclusive content on there is Jordan Peterson. I know there's a lot of Jordan Peterson fans out there. I know there's a lot of Jordan Peterson haters out there. Think what you will, but he's very wise. He's very good at breaking concepts down. And I think he has a very interesting and direct way of speaking to young men in particular. And so he did this series on there called Vision and Destiny. And he's touched on some of these things in at least one of his books too. But he basically goes through, and I think we actually touched on this a little bit last week, but he encourages people to in regards to vision. He basically has you walk through this mental process. He talks about it almost like picture your little avatar person, like you would create on Facebook, like your little person, and just kind of picture that in your mind. What is that little person doing when they wake up? And what are they doing after they wake up? And what are they going to do if they're 10 minutes for work? And he goes through all these scenarios. And the point is to essentially, you're actually creating thought patterns when you do that. Like when your little person in your mind, when you're picturing yourself faced with a situation, a stressful situation, even if it's just being late for work, if you're picturing yourself being stressed, you're more likely to be stressed because that's the thought pattern that you have put yourself into. And so it can be as simple as, and this is what vision is, it's picturing what could be. We've talked about this in the sense of what God has put on your life, but it applies to so many things. And the way that it relates to what we're talking about here is ask yourself who you want to be in any given situation. If a situation where somebody needs help or something's going on that is a tense situation, do you want to be the person that is cowering in fear and running away? Or do you want to be the person that people look at and they say, that person has their head screwed on straight, they're not worried or they're not panicked right now, and they look like they can make a sound decision? That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It just means that do you want to be that person that would react well in a situation like that? And if that's the case, then you play through these thought patterns of just, okay, what would I do? What would I want to do in a situation like this? Like a protest, like what you're saying, or even like you're saying on a social media thing. Who do you want to be? And then start to take the steps to get to that person. If you are an overreactionary, panicky person, you're going to have to deal with that before you can become that person you're envisioning in your mind. And it's interesting because so many of the things that we've talked about in the past regarding like what God is going to call you to do or ask you to do, and how that requires being attentive to your situations of, just expressing an act of kindness to someone. You're going to have to be aware of a situation. And that same concept of kindness can apply just the same way to a situation that would be a tense one, where it takes being present. It takes being engaged in whatever circumstance you're in. It doesn't matter if you're standing in the grocery line today. Like even today, I was at the grocery store and there was a guy really struggling with a big bag because he was in a wheelchair. And had I been kind of spacey, then I probably would have just stood there and been your average millennial that doesn't lift a finger to help anyone. But because I was just aware of what was going on, it's like, of course I'm going to help that guy just get the bag up so it can be scanned. So I'll start with that.
That's good.
Yeah. Being aware of your situation. Okay, situational awareness is basically that. I mean, we don't have to discuss that in depth. It's being aware of the situation that you are in, and there are when we teach about survival. And people, I don't want to talk about survival. Well, the opposite of survival is not surviving. Okay, it's called death. So I think I'm just thinking, survival is a pretty cool thing. There's the levels that we deal with of white, of yellow, of red, of black. Levels that you're in of, if you're at home, sitting in your recliner, you may be in white, you're really not caring about anything. But if you're out, walking around and you're at the grocery store or something like that, you just need to be in a little bit of a heightened awareness of what's around you, which means that you don't go walking through the parking lot with this thing, looking down at it, and all of a sudden you're running into people and someone's there and you're in a situation that you're like, how did I get here? Well, it's very easy. You walked right into it because you didn't see it. So being aware of your situation, yes. And then like Daniel was saying, being aware of who you are. Okay, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, we were talking about this, wrote a book called On Killing. It's a very good book. And he talked about sheep, sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. I did a message called Sheep, Wolves, and Shepherds. I probably need to go back and revisit that. Understand, Are you a sheep? Are you a wolf? Are you a sheepdog or a shepherd? If you're a sheep, be a good sheep. If you're a wolf, we're coming after you. Okay, we're just saying. If you're a shepherd, learn how to be one. Okay, as David was saying, the mental thing. You got to get in the game mentally, because there's things that are happening. And to say that, well, I live in, Franklin, North Carolina, or Blue Ridge, Georgia, it can't happen here. Well, I got a good friend of mine and Daniel's, the husband here, you guys, was driving down the road the other day, going home, and they have a Mogan David on the back of their car. And somebody goes by and starts honking the horn and yelling and, start speaking to them in single digits. You understand single digit. Okay. That's in Franklin. Okay. I met with the sheriff. I saw the sheriff today and mentioned it to him. He said, thank you for telling me about this, because there's this attitude. Well, it can't happen to me. Ryan, what does that attitude do to you?
It causes a spirit of complacency.
Yeah.
Which I love that actually you started with this. These are a wonderful tool. Let's leave them to that. When you're in a public space, keep your head out of this, because oftentimes we get comfortable walking around with our head in this instead of heads up looking around and seeing who is around us and what our environment is like. And
talking about our cell phones for people listening on the podcast.
Yes, I apologize. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Cell phones. Keep your head out of the cell phone, out of the cloud.
Yeah.
That's a new meaning. Head out of the cloud.
Yeah. Get your head out of the cloud. Wow.
Yeah.
I like it.
Don't get complacent, even in your quiet little town. And this comes to kind of a topic that I wanted to speak about, which is, in the your situational awareness, in your surveying your surroundings, what is your image and what is the image that others around you may be portraying? What do I mean by that? There's a few things to take into consideration. Let's say you're out at the grocery store and it's 75 degrees outside. And everybody is dressed for 75 degrees, except for one person who's wearing a big, heavy jacket. Who should you be keeping your eyes on? Probably the person with the big, heavy jacket, because that means they might be concealing something that could harm you or harm others. Yeah. That's just one example. What stickers do they have on their car? Mm-hmm. That's another thing I want to bring out. And you brought up this story about this individual in your congregation. I'm not faulting anybody for having any of their, Israeli flag or a menorah or anything like that on their vehicle. Because I know that is your way of saying that you stand with and support this group of people or this ideology. Where that is dangerous, and this is where I'm very careful with the stickers I put on my vehicle, is you have to think like the wolves.
Yeah.
I've done this exercise with my wife before. And this is actually a great thing you guys can do with your families. Go to a parking lot, start sitting in your car and observing different vehicles. and surmise based off the information provided you by that vehicle what this person does, where they live, what kind of target would they be. So for instance, if I'm out and I'm, let's say, looking to steal a firearm, I'm probably going to look in the pickup truck that has NRA, Glock, Magpul, SIG, I support the Second Amendment stickers all over the back windshield.
Yeah.
That's the first place I'm going to break into to find a vehicle, not the Subaru with the bike rack on top and the coexist sticker.
You beat me to that one.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing is we often see sort of on that, one of the bottom corners of the back window glass, you'll have the family, right? They'll have the dad, the mom stick figures, right? They'll have the kids, right? And they might even have a little dog there, right? Well, if I'm going to follow somebody home to break into their house, let's say, I'm not going to go to the one that has the sticker of the little dog there. I'm going to pick one that doesn't have the dog, right? But let's couple that with other stickers of information you might be providing. Let's say you say, well, my husband or my son is a Jones High School honor student, right? And you've got the stickers, right? Then you might have, something about some, First Baptist Church or whatever. This is going to all our listeners, not not just those Messianic, right? Well, now I know where your children go to school. I know roughly the vicinity that you live in and whether you're in town or out of town, depending on my locale. And I also know where your plans are, where you plan to be Sunday morning. And I can look up that church, find the service times, and I know who's not going to be home at those times.
Yeah.
This is just giving an example. I'm not trying to scare anybody, that kind of thing, but think about in your daily life what kind of image you are portraying to those around you, and if you are creating or giving enough information to somebody that you would make yourself a target. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yep.
David, pick it up.
I was gonna say, like, I think that, like, what you're talking about, Ryan, like, this is like we're talking about just a example of looking at vehicles, and just from your vehicle, how much information, if someone is to just stand there and just observe how much information they can get. And that's like what Ryan is, that information, because you could do the same thing at a mall. Like, now do the flip opposite. Now look at people that are in a mall and going, okay, they probably own a truck. They're in a car. Or you could do the same kind of thing and gain information on how they're walking, how they're doing things. Again, it's what are they telegraphing to everyone? What are they not really what are they subconsciously telling everyone around them? I think if you really just look at people, you can just get a very good idea of their mental state just by looking at them. And that does wonders for everything. I was wanting to just tap into that there, Ryan, because that seriously is amazing. Like, just looking at stickers, how much that tells you. Because the Subaru with the coexist, or then the truck with the NRA sticker is a polar opposite.
Sorry,
like
Katie.
Those are polar opposite. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everybody out there. Hey,
she has a Subaru, but not with a coexist on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sorry.
And the Subaru is an easy target because it's an outdoorsy,
Right.
easy target, no pun intended. So what does the Bible say about Amalek? It says that Amalek attacks the ones that lag behind. And part of what you're getting at, Ryan, as far as what image are you sending about yourself? Another thing that's very easy to tell, kind of like what you were starting to say, Dave, you can really tell a lot about a person just by watching them walk.
Yeah.
Dad, you never said this directly to me, but I think you said it to Steven, my brother. He said, I don't care if you're walking to the bathroom, you walk with purpose.
Well, I said in a teaching, I said, walk with purpose. He says, because he used to just kind of slouch kind of thing around the house. I said, Stephen, walk with purpose. He says, I'm going to the bathroom. I said, then go with purpose.
And so the reason I say that is because you can tell when you're out and about, like, you notice the person that's got their head held up high, and they're walking and they like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stay out of this person's way. Sometimes it's a big bulky dude and sometimes it's a mom. And you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to leave that alone right there. You know, and sometimes it's just like a respect thing. Like, wow, that person really carries themselves well.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be, it's an example I'll give, not as a prideful thing, but just something that shocked me as a realization of what you taught us, Dad, of to walk with purpose. I was 18 going to get a haircut, and the woman that was cutting my hair, because I would go to her a lot, she thought I was in my early to mid 20s. And she said it was because, and I had, you know, trash dash kind of, you know, very stubby peach fuzz facial hair. It was not how I looked. She said it was how I carried myself. And so again, who do you want to be? Are you going to be do you want to be the person that looks like they're just barely dragging by? Or do you want to be the person that has their head held high and walks with purpose? Because that alone makes you less of a target to other people.
I would say, and I want to just chime in on this because now we've looked at, okay, what your vehicle, how you carry yourself, where like looking at the main things that you're doing in life, those are the areas, whether you're at the grocery store, driving, that we're talking about some pretty big things. Again, we would have to have many, 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 many hours to go through of the little things that we know that there's a lot of great people out there that are experts at this. Just that's all they do day in and day out, right? Like we're hitting on we're hoping to whet your appetite on this. And so let me then like sub on that point that you just made, Daniel. So now we have like how you can command. I've realized that like command your presence as you're walking through places. It helps if you're a certain kind of size or certain amount of height. There's a lot of factors that can help you if you're genetically that way. However, there's also times where Brian talked about how there's the guy wearing the big overcoat in the middle of summer. That person's going to be, that guy's kind of weird. Yeah, guess what? If you're also genetically of a certain way, then people are going to just look at you and go, what's up with that guy? So do you want to command presence or do you want to blend in? Now you got to figure out how to do those. Whether the situation calls for you to stand out or whether the situation calls for you to be blending in with the crowd, blending in with people. Yeah. That's understanding that is where that's going to matter a lot to you guys. So learn how to be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dave.
No, go for it. Go.
Ryan, if you want to go with that, and then I want to add something to it in there, or
yes,
vice versa, whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. I don't want to dwell too long here because you're going to find proponents on both sides. One being more of your gray man theory, and the other being, those that command absolute presence as well. And I agree with you guys. Walk with purpose, and whatever you do, walk with purpose. Even if you're listening to Life on Purpose, walk on. No,
I was waiting for someone to do it.
No, I'm sorry, I had to. You talked about educating yourself some more, Dave. There's a couple things that I would recommend to our listeners, and they're very easy things for you guys to do. One, go to Amazon or go out to a bookstore, wherever you can, purchase a copy of The Art of War. Yeah. Read it. It's in the recommended officers' readings for most branches of the military. I know when I stepped into a managerial role at my first job, my mentor, he loaned me a copy. He was like, you should read this. This is something you need to know stepping into this position. So it will help you a lot in just your daily walk. There's tools in there that you can learn. The other one, and you guys may have heard of him. Again, when I recommend these, I'm not subscribing to everything that the person says, but there's information you can learn from them because of the places that they have been and the streets they have walked down. His name is Ed Calderon. Ed Calderon was 9 years as a Mexican police officer, but he was more into the drug and hostage side of things. According to him, he basically kicked like 9 doors a day for 9 years. So he has a lot of experience under his belt. But one of the things that he talks about is just that, your situational awareness, things to look for, both your image and the image other people put off. I know even at one point had taken a class during the Atlanta protests that were going on there. and actually took his class into the protest just so that they could kind of gather intel and see what was going on, and they could learn hands-on what was happening on the street and how to apply some of these different techniques. One of the things that he does is also talking about evasion and escape. Specifically, unfortunately, we live in a world where there is trafficking, human trafficking. And so he talks about some of the elements to look for in that, but also as far as escaping that. But more importantly, there's a lot of people that travel, and you can't always take all of your main tools with you.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about how to acquire or to utilize other items, everyday items, as these tools that you can have in your toolbox and utilize in these situations. Things as simple as a Bic pen and some kite string and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Go check him out, Ed Calderon.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find some really good information. I think he's got a Patreon that's like $5. A little plug for him there. It's honestly, it's worth it, because not only does he talk about the mindset and some of the gear and things, but he also will show you some videos, parental guidance suggested, but he'll give you video breakdown of things where we break down behavior as you're looking through things, and how to observe behavior or how to alter your own behavior in these certain situations. Very good stuff. And I can't think of too many other specialists in that area that are as credible as him.
Ryan, you bring up a great statement here of don't look like a target.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that in itself is about knowing who you are. Okay, because when we talk about don't look like a target, well, what does that mean? We have a young lady who watches Life on Purpose or listens every week. Sarah, not the largest person in the world, right?
No.
She could look meek. She could look like an easy target, but if she understands
That'd be
herself,
a mistake.
yeah, I know it'd be a big mistake.
Yes, it would.
Yeah,
That'd
because
be a
see
really
how
bad
she
mistake.
carries herself does not make her look like a target.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're, if you're a lady, this is not a chauvinistic thing. If you're a lady, ladies are the targets. Don't park next to a van, okay? Especially one that has no windows. Don't do things that are crazy. But ladies are seen by wolves as easier targets. So don't present yourself as a target. That means holding your head up. That means when you walk by somebody that you might perceive as a danger, you might want to stare right at them. And Ryan, if you want to disagree with me, please, you're welcome. You might want to stare them down as you're walking by them. But now, on the other hand, if I'm walking around, I'm about 6'2", though I've got some gray hair, I can look like a target on the other side. Is that somebody walks into a room and they're looking at me going, I better take that person out first. So I don't want to look like that target. I want to, in that kind of a situation, I might want to blend in a little bit more. So understanding who you are, where you are, what your calling is, what you're doing at the time, all of those things come into it, and comes back to what David brought up. Is the great, we talk about gear. I mean, I got a list of stuff right now that's, that I'm going over and kind of reacquainting myself with some things. Because I've taught this for a lot of years, but times have changed, and I'm kind of having to bring myself up to speed really, really fast with all of this. But the greatest piece of gear that you can have is the one that's right here. Is the brain. Because without that, it really doesn't matter what else you're carrying or have with you or whatever, without using the brain, nothing's going to mean anything. Ryan, did you want to correct me on that, or?
No, I had just a small point with that. Remember too, for you guys that may be listening, that you're like, I've got this figured out. I know what I'm doing here. I've got that large caliber piece, always with me, whatever it might be. De-escalation.
Yeah.
Is always your words and your thought. Travis Haley of Haley Strategic has a saying that I love: thinkers before shooters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That goes for.
We're not actually wanting to go into that area,
No,
but I know
no.
what you're going to. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. I wanted to modify that. Thinkers are, think before action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
De-escalate. Yeah.
De-escalate. If you can get out of a situation, get out of it. Do not be the person that escalates it.
Yeah. Live to fight another day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't think it's macho to be carried by 6.
Exactly.
Daniel?
Exactly.
Well, actually, I thought it was funny that you mentioned like you might want to stare them down too, because I just saw a video about a woman who had received instruction from a police officer of that very thing. Don't be the sheepish one that just kind of runs away, but let them know you see them and you're watching them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is really funny.
I'll bring up to that point as well. I heard this statistic and I tend to agree with it. 80% of violent altercations happen in low, altered, or fading light.
Mm-hmm.
So, ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest tools you can put in your toolbox is what? A flashlight.
Yeah.
That is I'm telling you, ladies, if you feel uncomfortable parking in a parking garage, but you have to park there, but you pull a, 800 lumen torch out of your purse and you start using that and looking under, car wheel wells and whatever as you're walking, you think somebody that's going to do you harm wants to mess with that? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's the attitude.
It's the attitude.
Yeah.
And there's 1,000 uses for them. Get yourself a flashlight. They don't cost much money, but they will do you a lot of good. Carry it with you every day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then we'll have to get into, maybe we'll have to do and I'm thinking about doing some programming on some basic things like flashlight technology and stuff like that. David?
Man, I think from listening to this, there's so much there's so much we can go into. I think that the thing is that I really hope that for y'all listening, this is just to whet your appetite. And because something that I found when I actually then got the opportunity to go train with people that are experts at stuff like this, and then to do something as simple as owning a tourniquet, that they don't cost all that much, but that is literally a life-saving piece of gear. You could save someone's life with something that only costs $30. You could save someone's life that they can actually live to fight another day. To understand though how to do that the right way, but then also
so you don't kill them.
Yeah,
exactly. So you don't kill them. So again, don't take I'm only whetting your appetite. I hope that you will go and find somebody that will teach, because there are plenty of resources out there for you. But to be aware that if acquiring this stuff, it's cool to have all this stuff, but if you actually don't put it into practice, because I used to be the same boat. Oh, well, I got this. I know as I will go in there that I'll be able to do this. But when chaos happens, when situations happens, chaos reigns supreme when those things happen. So when that happens, you get disoriented and you fall back onto whatever you trained to. And if you never trained in that stuff, you forget it. You don't even realize you might have life-saving gear with you. So you have to actually practice it, because I've actually been in a situation where it was chaotic. It was in training, but it was chaotic, and just stuff slipped out of my mind that afterwards was able to go, oh my gosh, I totally forgot I had this. I could have done this plan. But if you don't practice it, you'll never actually go to it. So you actually have to have a plan. You actually have to practice it, because then if you don't, then if you want to be a sheepdog, but then you don't practice being a sheepdog, you'll just be a sheep. You'll just fall back into sheep, and then probably even cause more panic.
Yeah.
And panic is the worst thing that can happen. The mind has got to stay in control. What do they say every time? Stay in control. Calm down. You have to get to a place where you have to calm your own self. You have to know yourself enough to know how to keep yourself grounded and not freak out. And I think that I'll close at this point is that we talk about shalom. That shalom. I love how you said this, Mike, about what is how you can look at shalom, and if you break it down, what it is, that which is bringing chaos be destroyed. You could be the embodiment of shalom then, because when chaos happens, you can come in there because you understand and know, because you trained, because you understand how to do something as simple as an accident, and being able to help calm somebody down is life-saving. Just knowing how to calm somebody down. That takes a lot of effort from you to do that.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You walk into a situation and you can be a sheepdog or you can be a chihuahua.
Yeah.
You know,
Or,
I mean,
yeah,
you want
better.
chaos, bring a chihuahua in the room, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
To that end of what you were saying there, Dave, and back to your point of people saying, "Oh, this could never happen here." Story that I got to personally experience. Our quiet little town, Blue Ridge. I'm sitting in the office one day, and I had just taken a course, Dave, like you brought up, on some of the medical side of things. I've got my headphones on. I'm listening to music, and I'm just working away. I've got the volume low enough I can still hear what's going on. And this elderly lady runs into our conference room, like in the side door that we never use, and she's screaming like, "Help, help, help me, somebody help me." So I go out and I'm like, "What's going on?" And she goes, "My husband just fell out of his cart. It was like a little scooter thing." And so I ran outside with her, and there he was. He had flipped over on trying to go up a ramp that he shouldn't have been going up, and had fallen, and he just had hip surgery. Proceeded to, I guess, break the hip again. But in the process, had really opened up a lot of wounds and sores on his arms. And he happened to be on blood thinners.
Oh, no.
And so, you talk about like something escalating quickly. You got to stop the bleed, especially something on blood thinners. And I had just gotten some items in my kit, some gauze and bandages and some more specialized items to be able to quickly help mitigate that, because we couldn't move him. He was sitting in the hot sun. Dave came out and was assisting me in this. But to that point, like, I had no idea that was going to happen that day, but I just always have my backpack with me with some of those items in it. And I was very, very glad that I did. It's 1:00 in the afternoon on a work day,
Yeah. I'm glad you guys brought this up, because my wife and I talk about the same thing of, we don't want to store up things as much as store up knowledge, because obviously you can have all the things in the world, but if you don't know how to use them and use them well and prolong them, then you're just gonna. I thought it was during the big COVID initial breakout, everyone was running to the store and getting toilet paper, and I was like, I just found it so ironic, because I was like, they don't have enough food to be able to use all that toilet paper. But I wanted to
he almost killed your dad.
Turn against someone. Just to the point,
don't use that tourniquet for head wounds.
Yeah. You said earlier, Dad, if you're a sheep, then be a sheep.
Yeah.
And it is important to know who you are. You may not be a shepherd.
Yeah, it's good.
And if you're not a shepherd, the worst thing you can do is try to be a shepherd, because you're going to get in the way of the other shepherd. And so in that case, just know who you are and what you're capable of. If you're not capable of being the shepherd, then at least be a sheep that can get the other sheep going the right way, that kind of thing. And I wanted to say too, we've been talking about this whole thing of, again, knowing who you are, and don't be someone who has a target on your back. And that starts, as everything, spiritually.
Yeah.
Yeshua talks about the person who had the demons cast out of them, and then they go away, and then they return to a house that's been swept clean but is still empty. If you are a house that is empty inside of your spirit, then that puts you as a target spiritually. All of these things start in the spirit, and then they manifest in the physical. You have to focus on the inside first and become that person first before you start on the physical. we've always prayed when I was growing up, and I continue to do this now. When we're praying for our people or for ourselves, just as like a general prayer, it's, please be with them or bless them spiritually, emotionally, physically, and financially in that order. Because if you go in any other order, something's going to get messed up. And so all that kind of stuff, and just being that person and knowing who you are. And in the end, knowing without a shadow of a doubt, I was actually talking to my kids about this a little bit ago. It does not matter what happens to your body. It is abhorrent and horrible what has happened to people's bodies in the past several weeks. Unspeakable. And it makes it hard to say this on, in our comfortable area, but it is important because it does not matter what they do to the body. Yeah. They can't touch the spirit. They cannot touch the soul. I was talking on Shabbat about how the worshipers would go first into battle. And as I was thinking about that, I feel like one of the reasons that the worshipers go first is because worshiping has a way of saying, it does not matter what my present circumstances are. It does not dictate my eternal standings. And so that worship, that acknowledgement of the eternal, of all of this that we experience in this life is just before we get to the kingdom, before we get to that eternity. And all of those things, like, it's so easy talking about all this stuff to get sucked in to that physical. And it's important. We have to think about these things. We have to really dwell on them because we do live in this physical world. But it's so important to remember that this is just part one. This is not the end, or this is not our eternity. And God is still God. He's still control. He is still in control. He still knows what's going on, and he can take the smallest amount that you have and make it into as big of a thing he wants. I said this on Shabbat too. God can make 1 from 0 very easily, but he loves to make 10 from 1.
Yeah.
And so it's putting in that a little bit of effort in your spirit, in your physical, in your emotions, in your finances, all that kind of stuff. And then he will do the rest.
I wanted to go right off what you're saying there, Daniel, because I think that this is something important. I think for those who are listening, because I have myself been one of these people, so I want to make sure too that we are speaking this out to everyone in life and in hope and in truth, that these things are important to know, but the ultimate thing you need to know is where you're at with our Heavenly Father. That's bar none. Yeah. We're saying all these things so that you are better in this life, being better. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing is to understand, where does your help really come from? That is the most important. Understand who it is that you serve, who it is that your King and your God is the most important, because he will be your ultimate protector. Because if you can get away from all of these situations, wonderful, and be protected, wonderful. However, what we're talking about is, if there's a situation where you're brought into that is in chaos, you might be in fact that person that is supposed to bring shalom to that place, peace, essentially this peace that destroys chaos. That's what we're trying to help tell you. And that understanding all this stuff is great, but if you're obsessed and consumed by it, we have to remember too that God is also a God that loves people. And we have to remember that we're not to be going in like, oh, we're looking for a fight. We're looking for people to be a part of his kingdom. Yeah. And the best thing we can do is lovingly help someone who's in need, helping an enemy pull them out of the filth that they're in. There's a lot of things that we can go into, and that's a whole other topic as well. But we need to understand where we're at in the big scheme of everything. Yeah. Is that we're a child of God. We're part of the kingdom of God. We're not here to be like, oh, we're defending our turf and our soil. It's like, this soil over here. I'm not talking about land over there, right? Let's make sure I'm making distinction there, because we're in full support of Israel standing its ground, doing what it's got to do. I'm saying is that a lot of times we get so married to, well, this is where I got to be at. Like, let's take a big step back. What does God want us to do? Where is he ultimately leading us to?
Let me spring
That's
off of
something.
that, David, and go back to something that Ryan brought out, and we're running out of time. However, that happened. This program's gone fast. Ryan, you brought out a word, de-escalate. And this goes along with what you were talking about, David. So I want to go to a person who is a hero of mine, a lady named Corrie ten Boom. And I'd like to challenge people, even those, if you got children, maybe this would help to understand some of the things that are going on in our day. There's a movie about her named The Hiding Place. Now, it is not high tech. It is not high action. It is none of those things. In light of today's movies, you would call it boring, but it is one of the greatest messages of all times about I'll condense this, about a family, the ten Boom family, who was living in Haarlem, Holland. And Papa ten Boom had been for many years of his life teaching people to stand with Israel, the Jewish people, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And so when it came time in Holland for the Jews had to go and line up, and they would have a gold star placed upon their jacket or their outerwear. And so Papa ten Boom, a Gentile, went and he stood in that line. And though he was not a Jew, he put a gold star on his jacket. He said, I will stand with God's people. He came home, and Betsy and Corey and their son, I can't remember his son's name right off the top of my head. They convinced Papa ten Boom to take that star off of his jacket and said, Papa, we can do more by being who we are. And they had to plead with him. But finally he did. He took that off. And that allowed him to become part of the story, which is the hiding place, which during the time that was operational in Haarlem, and I've been there, I've stood in the hiding place, a very humbling place to be, because they talked him into de-escalating. They were able to save almost 700 Jews during the time of the Shoah. Sometimes that we mentioned the bumper stickers. It may be wise to de-escalate. God knows where you stand, but it may be that you need to de-escalate so you can be part of a greater purpose. Guys, final words. Ryan, go to you.
Yes. We must be cautious not to, as Daniel and Dave have eloquently said, not to become overzealous in our preparation, and to remember in whose hands we are.
Yes.
But we must also not come to a place of complacency, or to allow ourselves to be lulled into a false sense of security when the Father has put it within our grasp to be able to aid both ourselves, our families, and others, and to use these mortal bodies and this life to be and have great effect on others. So hopefully, by listening to this episode, and I don't know if we may, I'm sure we'll maybe revisit this topic in the coming days. That'll be up to everybody here. We can discuss that. But in listening to this, I hope that you leave and have a fire under you, both to gain more spiritually and more physically in the knowledge of these things, these topics. So I hope we've helped somebody today.
There you go.
I think I want to lead off that too. I think because this is definitely a topic that is oh man, the amount of times I've talked about this, especially with Ryan, but with others around a campfire, is too many times. There's so many neat topics to look into. I think that if we take a big step back and realize we can't take on everybody, and you got to be, I think, humble enough to realize that you're only one person. But one person can do a lot, like Mike said. He loves turning people that are just one into 10. He loves doing that. And I think that if we realize that if our intent as we wake up is to just be the best person that we can be for his kingdom, and how can we make God really look good today, that I will do so much more. Because then as you're becoming more aware of people, you're then more aware of how you can help. And in love for your fellow brother and sister, you will do so much more than looking out for danger. And maybe I will put it that could be a debatable topic, but I would like to submit that before you. Look for in out of love, but be aware like a sheepdog, knowing, because a sheepdog looks for trouble, but also corrals the sheep to be together, because it knows if they're together, they're able to fight off any kind of foe because they're a bigger unit. So let's look at that way as well.
Yeah, Daniel.
I will say that whether it's spiritually, emotionally, physically, or financially, do not feel like you are coming into the game too late. He's the God who makes up for wasted time. There is no such. I will say there is still such thing as wasted time, but there's no such thing as wasted time that can't be redeemed with him. And so it's not about consuming everything and retaining everything immediately right now, and like you have to do that or you're just going to miss it. It's like a backpack that you're just kind of throwing stuff in. You throw it in and you may totally forget about it until you need it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I have that in there and I can use it. And that's how it's going to be with God. You put something in, knowledge wise or anything like that, God then has something to work with inside of you that he doesn't have to just throw into you at last minute. He can just bring it to the surface. So whatever it is, just walk forward today with your daily bread, knowing that he's still going to give you what you need for today, and that's going to be enough.
There you go.
Good word, Daniel.
Good word. Good word. Well, we are out of time for this evening. Yes, I agree, guys. We need to come back and revisit this. Not sure what kind of depth we want to go into. If our listeners would like to chime in, give us some ideas of what you might be on your thoughts, onpurpose@mail.com is a good place. You can go, put the comments all over the place, whatever you want to do. But this is a time to become aware. Be aware of who you are. Be aware of the days that we're in. Because, as I posted on Facebook the other day, congratulations for being so smart to be born at the time that you would be needed the most. And the reason? Because he has plans for you, plans for good and not for evil, to give you and others through you a future and a hope. See you guys next week.
See y'all next week.
See ya.
Yeah.